All right. Mm-hmm. All right. So I had to switch it up. It's always, my life, it seems. You gotta be resilient, right? Switch it up a little bit. All right. So I am doing my best to give people a couple more minutes to get on in here since I moved some stuff around. All right. Hello, hello. Let me let my friend know that I'm here. Since I told him to go on to. Hello, Mama. Happy birthday, Mama. Dr. Nia Wilson, happy birthday. I hope that your 48th was amazing. Shondell Jones, it's always a pleasure to have you on, sir. Patty, thank you once again. You ain't have to tell your man leave you alone, girl. I'm still here. All right, all right. I know that the time is of the essence. It's always a technical difficulty with me, but guess what? We still press on each and every episode. We don't let it stop us, right? So, welcome back. Now, look, we got a different one. Usually I say my double R, double C, but now we R2C. We Real Resilient Conversation crew. So, we the R2C crew. Welcome back. It is my sincere pleasure to welcome you to tonight's show. I am your host, Quita Quee. Thank you so much for joining. I am on 3 different devices, but I truly thank you for joining in on today. Welcome back because it's Monday. It is time for your mid-month fill-up. So I hope you came hungry. If you missed the show on the 1st of August, you are in for a treat. Go back and watch the I'm on a Budget Part 1. And we're going to cover, just to give you a little hint of what you missed. And we're going to cover that again on today. But I want you all to be ready. I have so much that I want to give you, and time is I'm always... time, right? Which we talked about. So whether it is your first time or you're watching it on rebroadcast, I want to say thank you, and welcome to the party. It is time to get resilient, and I'm your girl. We are so excited to have you be a part of today's show. We come back bi-weekly every other Monday, and we come to bring you more tips on how you can become more resilient in your everyday lives. So what I do is I take quirky, unique topics, and I mix them up, and I use them to look at resiliency in a different way. So on today, if it is your first time joining us, I want to say make sure that you put it down in the chat so I can say hello. I can give my personal thank you so much for joining. I'll make sure and reach out to you after the show to tell you how much I appreciate you for stopping by on today's show. If you come by and this has really been a blessing to you, I am going to ask a huge favor. I know it only takes 1 second to do, but I'm going to ask that you would like, share, and subscribe so that if it is blessing you or you think it can be a blessing to someone else, that you can go ahead and share it. Make sure that they have the opportunity of receiving the blessing as well. And for my bi-weekly returnees, you know what it is. You know what we do. Go ahead and put down in the chat, what do you think today's topic has to do with resiliency? Those that were here on the last episode, don't be giving it away. But if nobody wants to take the lead, go ahead and just let me know. What do you think a budget has to do with resiliency? Because when we're thinking about resiliency and we think about budgeting, is that something that we usually take into account? Do we usually say, oh, with my budget, I want to think about resiliency? Not necessarily. That's not usually what we do. If it is somebody else in the crew that does it, y'all let me know, because that's not something I usually put two and two together, right? So once again, anything that I bring to you all is because I've been dealt with on multiple levels. So I get the whipping first before I come and say, let me help you all learn so you don't have to go through the whipping as I did. So tell me what your thoughts are on tonight's show and what it has to do with resiliency. So we're going to cover down on last episode. We're going to hint a little bit on the 3 topics that we covered on the last show. And then, of course, we're going to jump into the 3 topics we're going to cover tonight. So with that being said, usually a budget is something that we plan for a specified time. So then you say, within this amount of time, I plan on using these resources to get to this anticipated goal, if that makes sense. Somebody in there, go ahead and give me some thumbs up, some high five, something. Let me know y'all get me. Y'all can hear me good. Everything's working good, right? And so when you're talking about a budget tonight, as you're thinking about it and you're thinking about utilizing that plan and those resources to get to your goal, then you want to think about, on the last episode, we talked about time budgets, we talked about emotional budgets, and we talked about financial budgets, which is something that most of us are familiar with, right? And then tonight, for our topic, we're going to cover spiritual budgeting, spiritual budgeting, mental health, and physical energy budgeting. So just to recap and to go back over what we talked about on the last episode, time is usually spending time on, you're using high quality activities or high quality, you are very determined with your time that you have in order to make the best out of that time. So for example, some people have those planners and they have time slots. And within that time slot, if it's a 30-minute slot, if it's an hour slot, you put down exactly what you will be doing during that time. If you are outside of that time frame and you finish within that time frame, wonderful. Now you got 15 minutes to kind of do something that was spontaneous. Otherwise, you end up with, I don't have time. It's not on the schedule. It can't get done today. Very deliberate with their time, very intentional with their time. Right? So we were talking about time budgeting, emotional budgeting, paying attention to what is pulling at you emotionally. And I said to think about that pie chart. And when you're talking about 100% of you, the whole entirety of you, break down that pie chart into what your emotions look like. Out of this day, 20% of my emotions were happy, 30% were frustrated, 10% was happy, excited. Go and really sit down, and that's kind of unwinding throughout the day, which you'll see in the planner that is to come. Those are going to be the type of things that you're going to be seeing when we're talking about being resilient. And observing what emotions and trying to realign to get you to a happier, healthier you. And the last thing we covered was finance. So the income versus the expenses. So how much you got coming in versus how much you got going out, which is the traditional budgeting that we're familiar with. However, I did want to cover down for people who may or may not think that it's important. And for those that do not really take the time to stay within a budget. I'm guilty. I get on my little township game. I get to spending money. Or I get on to Amazon and I'm like, but I need this. It's only $10. And then $10 is $10 here, $10 there, $15 here. Next thing you know, you're outside of your budget. So we talked about that. And what is necessary to live versus what is being spent in excess. And it's also looked upon as irresponsible. Okay. So now that we have kind of given you a background of what we talked about on part 1, let's jump into today's topic. And we are starting with spiritual budgeting. So down in the chat, let me know, what do you think when you hear spiritual budgeting? What have you ever even thought of spiritual budgeting and what that has to do with you? What type of budget does that really mean to you? Is there a such thing as a spiritual budget in your mind? And if so, why or how is it important when it in respect to your resiliency, your day-to-day resiliency? How is it important, or why is it important? And while y'all are in, taking the time to really think through and really ponder on if spiritual resiliency is a thing or not, I'm going to kind of give you some background. So on the 11th, I'm at midnight. I'm a part of Dr. Nia Wilson's. I fall under her as a minister. So on that night, I decided, or I volunteered, so to speak. We had a prayer cry, a midnight prayer cry, and it was just time for prayer. And when I thought about it, I was like, and then I started to realize that was a part of my spiritual resiliency, was taking that time out to not only pray and be a blessing for myself, but to pray and be a blessing for someone else. And how many of us have actually been like, I'm good, I thought I was good, until you realize that your spiritual tank was a little on E. And now you got the flashing light letting you know that you on E, right? Right? And so just like any other budget, there's an input or an income versus an output and an expense. And what type of things, when you are considering the input or the income for your spiritual walk, is important, right? For your spiritual resiliency. So one, it would be your connection with God. So I'm not trying to push Christianity, however, that is what I am. And because Christianity is who I am, then I am going to speak on it. So I do apologize for those who may be offended. However, this is where you came to. This is what you came to. So when you're talking about spiritual resiliency, whether it is Christian or other, just know that you still have to have a connection with God. Right? Your connection with God is your pathway, your direct pathway, your phone call away. You got to have a connection. But to get that connection, you have to do what? You have to understand who God is, what God means to you. So that means reading a manuscript. Just like when you get a car, you got to sometimes read through and figure out how to use certain things. Well, guess what? In order to get through this thing called life, we have to read the manual. We have to read the manuscript. We have to listen to some faith-building sermons or books or other preachers, other teachers, right? In order for us to build our connection with God. Now, that's how we get our income, right? You need that income. And in order to do that, it also means that you have to develop a prayer life. In your prayer life, you will notice when your spiritual budget is falling a little short or you're a little overspent is when you realize that your prayer life has been slacking. And when your prayer life is slacking, now all of a sudden you're like, man, something is off. Something's not where it needs to be. Have you checked your spiritual tank? Have you checked your spiritual budget to see where you're sitting, where you have spent time with God, right? And these are realistic things when we're talking about our spiritual man needing to be fed with our spiritual budget. And being obedient to the word that we read, being obedient to what the manual says. Now, you're not going to put 87 in your car that requires a premium gas. Did you read the manual to see? Did you see how it will affect if you don't do the right things? So it's the same thing when we are talking about our spiritual walk and our spiritual budget. When it's off, then it throws everything off, right? And so being obedient to the word, the voice, the guidance. So when you're like, God, tell me which way I need to go. Tell me if I need to be in this relationship. Tell me if I need to stay on this job. Tell me if I need to. Tell me this, right? When we're looking at our spiritual budget, what are we putting in before we're asking to be pulling out? And because if we are not in commune, we don't have community, we don't have a group of people we can reach out to and say, hey, I need help, hey, I need understanding, hey, I need someone to pray with me, then we end up in a stage to where now we're deficit. Now we're getting the you are overdraft. You've been asking God for some money. You've been asking God for some prayers. You've been asking God for some blessings, but what have you done to be a blessing back? What have you done to gain and put into your spiritual budget, your spiritual bank? All right? So far, how we doing about that? All right? When you're talking about expenses, we expect God to still answer our prayers, to still come through, to still make a way, to still do miracles, but we got to do our part, right? And we can help others when we become stronger. And how do we become stronger? By reading the manual, by understanding, by comprehending where we need to be, how we need to be, being an encouragement to someone else. And with my fibromyalgia, right, and my medical issues, and every time I get a negative report, I say, whose report are you going to believe? And it is so, if I had to reach out to my community and say, I need help, I need someone to pray with me, I need someone to walk this thing with me. And it is so important to have that community of people in order to be able to pull it out. That's where your expenses come. When you say, hey, I need some money, those are your people that's going to lend you the money. Those are the people, your community, that is going to help you when your spirit bank is low. They're going to pray with you. They're going to pray through. They're going to help you pray through it, right? Regular spiritual cleansing. We all need to be cleansed at some point, right? And that cleansing may actually be a time of purifying, of releasing, of rebuking, repenting, right? Of releasing the thing that was holding you back from being closer to God. And so taking care of others can be a blessing while you are waiting to receive your extra funds. So if you had a secondary job, it's kind of like when you're out serving others and then all of a sudden you get that extra paycheck. Not your primary money that you usually get, but you get a little extra. That's what I look like that's how I feel when I feel like I am blessing someone else, and my blessing in return is coming from someone else that I may or may not know. So how do you avoid overspending in your spiritual budget? What are you doing now, or what are you even thinking of when it comes time for you overspending in your spiritual budget? Does that mean that you need to spend more time understanding the manual? Does that mean that you need to spend more time praying? Does that mean you need to spend more time in community or in commune helping someone else? Praying with someone else, lending a helping hand, giving a couple dollars, paying for someone else's meal, whatever that might be. How are you avoiding overspending, asking too much without giving back? All right? Questions, concerns? No? Pressing on. Time is of the essence. Oh, my time. So when we're talking about mental resiliency, mental health, why is mental health so important in response to your resiliency? And we've talked about this in the past, but since we were talking about mental health and budgeting, so your mental health budget, in what ways can your mental health affect your resiliency? And because we've covered this before, I'm not going to harp on it too long, but when you're talking about your mental health and your resiliency, it affects, or mental health can affect, be affected by your stress level, if you're satisfied or not, if you are emotional and your behavioral flexibility is off. All of these things play a factor into you being able to bounce back, which is why it's not a bad thing if you need some help, if you need to talk to a therapist, if you need to go and seek some help. It is not a bad thing. And I don't want anyone on my channel here to feel less than because if you do decide to seek help. Okay, I just wanted to make sure and get that out there. So according to the American Psychology Association, I think is what it is, resiliency is the process and the outcome of successfully adapting to the sways of life. All right, kind of like the waves of life. Some days are up, some days are down, but it's about being able to adapt. When the highs are up, you ready up. When it's down, you know how to bend them knees. It's kind of like right on the back of a motorcycle, I think. I don't know. But you got to be able to, when it comes time for mental health and your budget is off, you're spending too much time in your stress, anxiety, depression, grief, PTSD, phobias, shame, your embarrassments. All of these things are playing into your mind over and over again like a camcorder stuck. And because if we allow those things to manifest and stay there, what happens with our mental health resiliency? Now we become depleted. And the different medical conditions, us trying to excel so much that we don't give ourselves room to grow, or the fact of struggling, and then we accept struggling as a way of life. Whatever it might be, the surviving in crisis, the thriving, the transitioning, whatever that might be, your mental health is so important when it comes time to balance out your budget. It's just like overspending in anything else. If I spend too much time in this negative thing, when it's time to balance out and say, hey, I need some help. Hey, I'm having a rough day. Hey, mentally, I'm stuck in this place, whether it be a friend, a family member, a therapist, a hospital, wherever it might be. You go to a doctor's appointment and say, something's not right. I don't feel right. I just don't. Talk about it. You see it, you feel it, talk about it. You don't really know why you feel what you feel, speak on it. And because when you are at that point and that's what you're doing, you are not allowing your mental health to overtake who you are and what you desire and what you deserve for your future. So it's kind of like what you feed grows. So if you feed negativity when it comes time for your mental health, it's gonna grow. You're gonna grow in debt for your mental health instead of you growing in thriving in your mental health. And I mean, look at your children, your pets. You feed them, they come back. It's the same thing. So when you find some people that you can talk to, that you trust, that you are in commune with, that you feel a connection to, that you feel can help you to get through those moments. So with that being said, what are some ways that you feel you are overspending in your mental budget? And are there ways that you can change it? And are there people that you feel you are comfortable enough with that you can shift, readjust your budget to say, I can't do this, I would love to, but mentally, emotionally, I don't have it, right? Being able to say that is such a strong, it is not a weakness, it's a strong attribute within yourself. So, lastly, let's talk about physical health. And the reason why I put physical health lastly is because overspending physically does not look the same for everyone. So I say that to say, what does overspending physically for your budget, what does that look like? What does that feel like? What does that seem like to you when you're talking about overspending physically, your body? When you're overspending physically, what does that feel like? What does that seem like? And there are many things that affect us physically, and I can speak, like I said, because of a chronic illness. And stress is always top notch. That's going to knock you out. And if you haven't noticed, stress is kind of in there with all of them. And so stress, too little sleep, too much sleep, poor eating habits, dehydration, not taking medication on time, conflict with other people, traumatic experiences, medical conditions, not being able to exercise, not being able to express yourself, can turn into a physical attribute that you have to now be aware of. And when not being able to spend time with friends and family. So especially when you're in the military, there's a lot of times that you miss out on friends and family because you have a duty that you are required to fulfill. And when you are doing that, you are missing out on your friends and family time. And when your physical budget is overdrawn, you end up stuck in the bed. You end up missing out on important things. Your time management and your productivity suffers, right? And when we're talking about your productivity and your time management suffering, you end up exhausted. You don't have time or the energy to be around others because you are depleted. And when we're depleted, how can we give? You can't pour from an empty cup because there's nothing left to give. So physically, you have to understand when there's time for you to be able to bless someone, when there's time for you to be able to give off that energy, and when there's time for you to say, I can't be around you because there's more energy that I have to give to you. And I am understanding that for myself, when it's time for me to be around other people. I realize that I hear more people say, I love being around you. It's just something about your energy. But then when I leave from other people, the issue with being an empath, then I am drained because I have given so much and taken on and loved on them and been supportive of them and been understanding of them. And then by the time I get home, I'm like, I need a couple days just to myself. And then it makes you mentally question yourself, like, have I depleted myself mentally because physically I've spent this time with these people? And your physical budget, when it's overdrawn, now you have an overdraft fee. Your overdraft fee now causes you stuck in the bed because you don't want to be around people. You end up depressed, you have anxiety, whatever it is. Now you are overdrawn because you have given too much of yourself physically. You want to go all day, your feet hurt, you haven't eaten, you avoid or you end up missing out on meals. I don't know, you end up missing out on doing the things that your time management said that you should have been doing, your time budget said you should have been doing, but your body is saying, I don't have the energy to do it. So when you are thinking about your physical health, to replenish that thing that now has drained you and depleted you and put you in overdraft, what are you going to do to counteract that and to put back in? Make a plan and stick to it. That time management thing that we talked about is important. So making time for yourself and say, I would love to come and spend time with you. I would love to come and hang out with y'all. However, my body just can't handle it. I'll catch y'all on the next time. And that's important to be able to say, on the next time, I'll make sure and catch up with you. I'll make sure and be a part of it if I can. And then you have to be realistic and say, as long as my body can handle it, as long as my mental can handle it, as long as my emotions can handle it, whatever that might be realistic. And I think as a people, we more than likely, we overpromise because we don't want to be that person that makes someone else feel bad because we couldn't do what we wanted to do. So reassess your priorities. What you used to say yes to, if you can't say yes to it, you can't say yes to it. That's it. At one point, I used to be able to say yes to every event. I'll be there every time. And now there's times when I say, my physical health is important, so I can't do it. My mental health is important, so I can't do it. So you have to be able to budget your mental, your physical, and when we're talking about our physical, be able to say, I used to be able to do that. I used to be able to hang with y'all. Now I can't. Now I like to be in the bed at 11:30. Right? Reflect on what your body needs. If your body needs 8 hours of sleep, give it 8 hours of sleep. I have a friend, I know she's probably not on here, but I have a friend who, it seems like she requires like 14 hours of sleep in order to, to make it. However, if your body is telling you that if it needs more vitamins, give it to it. If it needs more minerals, give it to it. If you need more a balance, give it to yourself. Your body requires that time. It requires affection, attention, whatever it is that you require. Make sure that you are verbal in prioritizing where it needs to be in your life. And if it is not a time that it needs to be there, then you need to say, I used to be able to say yes to spending time, and now I don't have the time. I don't have the energy. I don't have the physical budget to give it to you. So I'm sorry, I can't this time. Maybe on the next time. And leaning on your support system when those times happen is important too. So that's why it goes back to having that community, being able to have those people that you can lean on and say, hey, I'm having a rough day today. I'm having a rough time on whatever those budgets might be. My time, my emotion, my financial, my spiritual, my mental health, my physical health, whatever those might be when we're talking about on the spectrum of the 6 types of budgets that we covered. Be able to say, I would have loved to do that. However, I can't do it. And now I feel bad because I can't do it. For someone else to say, it's okay. All the other times that you said yes, the one time or the 2 times you say no should not outweigh that. They should know your character. They should know who you are, how you are, and still be happy to have you. And you have to be at a place where you can say, okay, I'm struggling, but this feels good. To be able to say it's okay. And so you lean on those people. If you need help when it comes to any of your budget, especially mental health, lean on someone else, family, friends, therapists. If it is mental health, please make sure that you lean on those that are in the hospital that can necessarily help you in the time of need. So, with that being said, this is my time. I have gone over my time, but only by a couple minutes because I was giving y'all time to get on in here. So, I pray that something that I said today was a blessing. It was truly my pleasure to bring forth resiliency on the mindset and in the aspect of budget. And I hope that something that I said today really was a opportunity for you to readjust your lens when it comes to resiliency and to really give back to you. If I have if you said something, you said, maybe my friend need to hear this, maybe my family member need to hear this, maybe just my followers need to hear it. I ask once again, it only takes a second, but it means the world to me. If you would just like, share, subscribe so that someone else will be able to hear about it, and hopefully it will be a blessing to them as well. So until next time, guess what? Come back in 2 weeks on the 29th of August, because the next one is going to be called Fall in Line. Fall in Line. Fall in Line is coming on the 29th of August. We are going to bring it in, same time, same place, with the same face. I have come to you with love, peace, joy, and happiness, praying nothing but strength to you all as I give of myself to you. I pray that you have a blessed night, a wonderful next 2 weeks until I see you on the 29th. I'm going to a white party on Saturday, so I'm going to be fly. Y'all should be looking for some pictures. Y'all stay encouraged, stay blessed. Until then, I'm going to bless your socks off by saying love, peace, joy, and happiness until 2 weeks. See ya. Bye.